beautiful. Hey everyone, I am Vismaya Rubin, founder of Living in Gratitude Today, teacher, speaker, best-selling author, but my favorite role is that of a gratitude gangsta. What? And I am truly grateful to be able to have this opportunity to speak with you. So thank you to Speakers Pathway. Thank you to Jim, Don. Thank you to the two people who spoke before me. You kind of set things up for me, and we didn't even plan it this way. So gratitude is like CPR, and it could bring you back to life. But before I go into that, if I was in a live audience, I would ask you, raise your hand if you ever feel tired or overwhelmed, especially with what we're going through right now. And I could pretty much rest assured that many people in the audience would have their hands up. And I would ask you then, keep your hand up if you ever feel like there's got to be more to life than what we're experiencing right now. And again, I would probably bet a few dollars and say that people's hands would stay up. And that's perfect. And that's normal. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about. How do we get to practice CPR and practice gratitude? Like Violet said, gratitude really, brought her back to life based on what she was dealing with. So the C stands for compartmentalize. So we have all these things going on. If you ever have been in a situation where life is just kicking you in the rear and you find yourself having these conversations, oh my God, life is so challenging, life is so difficult, life is so this. The first thing I'm going to say to you is acknowledge how you're feeling. So we're going to compartmentalize. You're going to take your life and you're going to look at, okay, so let's look at my family aspect. Let's look at romantic relationships. Let's look at my friendships, maybe work, or my body image, or spirituality, fun, my living situation, maybe my goals. So take a look at each of those categories. If you have your own category you want to throw in, by all means, throw it in. And acknowledge how you're feeling in each category. And what I can, again, probably bet is that in each category, not every aspect of your life is 100% in the pits. And I think there's such a powerful exercise, because what happens is when we start to go into that space of, oh my God, everything is horrible, everything is rotten, we find evidence to support that. So why not find evidence for the opposite? But the thing to remember is this: when we are in that space that everything is crazy, everything is challenging, everything is difficult, the second we're able to say, take a deep breath and really acknowledge what we're feeling, allow ourselves to feel it, it's kind of like it releases the top of a pressure cooker. So if you ever have had a pressure cooker, you put the top on, and when it's ready, it starts to release itself. If not, it explodes. And that's the same thing with our feelings. So if we push them and we suppress them and we hold them down, and I remember in the beginning of the pandemic, people were saying, oh, just breathe, it will be okay, everything will be all right. And I could feel myself saying that's the worst advice we could give people. Allow people to express what's so for them. So when you go through that exercise and you're looking through the different areas of your life and you're asking yourself, okay, so let's look at this area, my family, let's look at my romantic relationships, and kind of rate them. Like, I'm sure there are plenty of wonderful things that are happening in some of those areas. And then here's the thing. So we're going to compartmentalize the areas that are not working. We're going to take those areas that aren't working and we're going to put them in a little container, and we're going to leave them there, and we're going to put them there for a while. And what we're doing when we do that is we're giving them space to breathe, but now we've freed the rest of our mind to look for all these other things that are actually working, that are actually making us smile, that bring us joy, that make us happy, that bring us life. So we have that space right now that we can take a look at those things. And if you're really feeling the pressure of those things that are not bringing you joy, here's an activity you may try. Call a friend and say, listen, we have 5 minutes each. And what we're going to do is we're going to say whatever is so for us. And if that means that we're going to, complain and shout and act, we're frustrated, perfect. 5 minutes. While that one person is speaking, the other person doesn't say a word. And then you swap. And a couple of things happen. One, again, you're not suppressing those feelings. You're allowing them to breathe, right? And you're giving yourself and your friend the opportunity to be heard. So that's the first thing. Compartmentalize the area of your life that are not working so well. Take a look at them, put them in a box, and then if you need to, you call a friend and you have those moments. And then the other thing I want you to remember is, as you're going through this, remember, adversity does not discriminate. This is not just you. This is not just, you know, not picking on you. The universe isn't picking on you. Sometimes things happen because things happen. And I think it's really powerful when we go into those spaces of, oh my God, why me? Not again. Why am I a target? Why am I this? To really stop ourselves, because that path takes us down a downward spiral. So when we start to go in that space, because human nature, it's natural for us to have those kind of feelings, just as it's natural for us to feel happy and joyful and excited and alive. It's also normal for us to feel sad and frustrated and angry at times. But what do we do with that anger? What do we do with that sadness? What do we do with that frustration is really where our power either is taken away or we're given power. So remember, adversity does not discriminate. It's not why you, why not you? I think the phrase to say is, okay, sometimes things happen because they happen, and now how do I get to deal with them? The other piece of advice I would say to you is see things as they are and not worse than they are. So if it's that this aspect isn't working again, it's not that everything in your life isn't working. It's just that that one aspect isn't working. And I think what you'll start to notice is that there's a lot of power in there. And it reminds me almost of the Serenity Prayer, which is, you know, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. And I think there's a lot of power in what you can start to ask yourself when you're looking at those areas that are not working and that you've compartmentalized. Ask yourself, what can I do about them now? What can I change right now? What do I have control over? And what do I not have control over? And I think that once you start to see that written down, and I would absolutely write it down, you start to come from a different space. You start to realize, okay, and I'll give you an example. Like, since we have been in quarantine, my exercise in the beginning was getting up and going to the refrigerator, getting up and eating a bag of potato chips. Not good. You know, so I'm like, oh, the quarantine, da-da-da-da. I can't change the fact that we're quarantined and we're asked to stay at home. What I can change is not eating the potato chips. What I can change is getting up and moving around. So now I've challenged myself every day for 30 days, and today is day 14, 10,000 steps a day. And I use my pedometer, and it's a celebration at the end of the day when the 10,000 steps hit. Apple iPhone gives me confetti and the whole works. So I get to celebrate. So what can I control and what do I have no control over? So as you start to look at that, you're going to start to experience a lot more freedom. And I think that that's a powerful activity that we can all do. Excuse me. What does the P stand for? The P stands for pause. And if you've ever read Stephen Covey's, I used to teach the 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens to my students. And there's a part that says push the pause button. And the pause button is right here in the middle of your forehead, in case you didn't know. So go ahead with me, push the pause button. And this is a really powerful action. And it sounds a little and feels a little ridiculous that we're going to stop, you know, when we're in that space. All of a sudden you go like this. People may look at you like you're a little crazy, and that's okay. But it really is, it's giving you an action step to take. And when you push that pause button, you're going to take some deep breaths. Literally go inhale, hold your breath for a few seconds, and slowly exhale. And you want to do this a few times, because as you take that breath, what you're doing is you're bringing that focus back to your conscious mind and not to all those other things that are in the background playing. And what you're doing is also you quiet those mind monkeys, or mind monsters, mind monkeys. I like monkeys, so I usually don't use that one. Quiet the mind monsters. And the way you do that, again, is by taking those deep breaths and by asking yourself, are these thoughts helping me or are they hindering me? And really get clear on that. And I like what Violet said about a not to do list. What I would say is also have a list of things. Okay, so if I'm worried right now because we're in a pandemic and I'm not going to work about paying my rent, if the rent isn't due for 5 more days, put that on a list for 5 more days. Give yourself permission to not stress and freak out for the next 5 days. And then on that day, you pick it back up and you worry about it again if you need to. So again, we're taking deep breaths when we push that pause button. We're quieting those mind monkeys, monsters, And we're asking ourselves, are these thoughts helping me or are they hindering me? And then the one that I love to do always when I start to feel that anxiety coming on, or I can't quiet the mind monsters, I go for a walk or I exercise or I do something like that. I have explored my community. I have, taken walks more than I've ever have in this around my neighborhood, which has been really cool. There's been these owls that I've paid attention to, or I've noticed that have been really cool. And the other thing you want to do is you want to start, when you're in that pause space, start to pay attention to your language. Are you using words like, I always do this and make a mistake, or I never do this, or life doesn't work for me, it never happens, and nothing I want ever comes through? Start to pay attention to those words and start to swap them out. Instead of, I never get what I want. When I'm doing this, it doesn't maybe happen the way I want it to happen. Sometimes, not always, sometimes. And start to pay attention to your language, and start to pay attention to the things that you're saying as well as the things that you're doing, right? And remember that these times, these challenging times, are temporary. If you're experiencing sadness, experience that sadness right now and realize that this is temporary and it will pass. And give yourself permission. If you're feeling sadness, allow yourself to feel the sadness. Allow yourself to feel what's there for you, and then say, okay, now I need to do something else. Now I get to move on. And I think there's power, again, and it allows you so that that pressure cooker doesn't start to explode because you're pushing everything down. So pause, give yourself permission, again, to breathe, to feel what you're feeling if you need to for another few moments, and then to just say, okay, this too shall pass. The universe has my back. I'm going to be okay. This isn't just picking on me. This happens to other people, right? And then the last part is reflect. And this is so powerful. And when you're reflecting, what you're doing is you're telling your brain to start to look for those moments that make you smile, that make you feel good, that are juicy, that are delicious, that make life really worth living. And the way you do this is you pull out your phone, right? I saw that Violet does her moments of joy. Pull out your phone and set that alarm to go off every 3 to 4 hours. And when that alarm goes off, what I want you to do is, again, this is where you do the pause part. You stop, you pause, and you reflect. Who or what made a difference for me? These are what I call my gratitude wins. Who or what made a difference for me? What did I do for myself or somebody else? When we talk about gratitude often, excuse me, we think about gratitude in terms of what happened for me, who did something for me. But start to pay attention to the little things that you did for yourself, or the little things that you do for somebody else. Like at the end of the day, when I see those 10,000 steps on my pedometer, I celebrate. That doesn't mean I'm happy and joyful every second of the day, but those moments are joyful moments that I get to celebrate. I did it no matter what, whether it was raining outside or if it was 300 degrees because I live in South Florida, whatever the scenario is, I made it happen. And sometimes that means I'm standing in my living room at 10:59 and I'm stepping until I get the last steps in. So celebrate. What did I do for myself or somebody else? Did I learn something new? And I think this is so powerful during this time of quarantine, when we have this time to kind of be quiet, when the world is kind of quiet. We have this opportunity to try something new. There's, you're listening to podcasts or reading a book or going online and finding a skill that you wanted to learn. There's people all over the world teaching things, virtual field trips you can take with your kids, all of these great, wonderful things that you may not have had the opportunity to do before, and now you have time perhaps to fit them in. So did I do something new? Did I do something nice for somebody? And then what made me smile or laugh till my sides hurt? And I think this is also really important. What made you smile today? What makes you feel good on the inside, that juiciness, right? And we start to force our brain or retrain, let me say it this way, retrain our brain to look for those moments that bring us joy. Nobody wakes up and says, I want to feel more grateful today. That's not what happens. People will wake up and say, I want to feel happier. I want to feel more excited. I want to feel more alive. I want to be more productive. And that's what happens when you practice gratitude. Research shows that people who practice gratitude are 27% happier than people who don't practice gratitude or are on that neutral level. They're 27% happier than people who are either sad or neutral. So if you want to amp up that level of happiness, look for those things that happen to you today. Look for 3 unique things that happen today that you can call your gratitude wins, that make you feel good, right? Grateful people are more productive. When you're feeling good, you're more productive. You have greater relationships with the people around you. And right now in particular, when we're on lockdown and we're home with our whole family, it could be very easy to find the things that we don't love about each other, but it's also just as important, right? Let me rephrase that. As easy as it is to find the things that we don't like about people, it's just as important to find what we love about that person. So every day, find something that your kids did really well, like really focus in. You may have to try really hard, but do the work, focus in, say, what did my kids do really well today? What did my spouse do really well today? Even if you're not feeling it, focus in, hone in on those things that that person did really well so that you have something to write down at the end of the day on your gratitude chart. And then tell that person, hey, you know, I really like the way you did that today. Thank you so much for making my life a little bit easier, whatever the scenario is. So again, compartmentalize the stuff that's not working. Put it in an area. Do not ignore it. Allow it to live right here. Allow it to breathe. Allow it to have the energy it needs. But realize that is not every aspect of your life. And then whenever those moments are happening that you just are like, ah, give yourself permission to pause. So once those are compartmentalized, right? Our alarms are going to go off every 3 to 4 hours. When that alarm goes off, you're going to pause and take a few deep breaths. Quiet those mind monsters. If the thoughts are still coming, say to yourself again, are these thoughts helping me or hindering me? And then reflect on your gratitude wins. Who or what made a difference for me? What did I do for myself? And did I do anything new? Did I learn something new today? And then what made me smile or laugh till my sides hurt? And I can promise you that if you start to practice this habit, regardless of what life circumstances you're in right now, the more you practice, the more you're training your brain to look for those moments that bring you joy. The more you're able to start to see the things in the middle of the mess, in the middle of whatever is going on, you're able to see those moments of gratitude. You're able to see your gratitude wins. It's almost like they pop out at you. And that's the coolest part, right? You could experience sadness. I remember when my aunt was dying and it was awful. The most beautiful thing for me was she asked me to help her with her bedpan. And she could have asked anybody else, but she asked me. And what I realized in that moment was that she loves me and she trusts me and she wanted me to help her. And I remember getting in my car and it was like a 45-minute drive home and I'm like, oh my God, like she just gave me the biggest gift of my life. And we were in the middle of sadness. We knew she was going. This was the end of her life. But still in the middle of the sadness, you can find these moments of gratitude. You just have to start to practice. So again, compartmentalize, pause, reflect, and I am Vismaya Rubin, your favorite gratitude gangsta. What?